Hey, this is CJ with CompRCC.com, and in this series of videos I'm going to be assembling the new Team Associated B5m team. So now it's time to put together the rear hubs. These are the inserts. There's 6 of them all together, 3 pairs, 0 degrees of outer toe, 0.5 degrees, and 1 degree. And since I'm going to be running indoors, very high traction on carpet as well as clay, I want less toe because straight line stability isn't as big a concern with those high traction surfaces. So I'm going to start by going with the least amount of toe, which is 2.5 at the inner setting and 0 outer. Slide the bearings into the hubs. Now you may notice there's 2 small holes here, and that is for optional grub screws, which you can get. I am going to order those from Associated. They're like little set screws. You just screw them in and they anchor these in place. They also can bite down a little bit onto the hinge pin, so the hinge is only swinging on the swing arms instead of moving inside the insert. This is another one of the really nice features. You can use either one of these 2 threaded aluminum blocks to mount the caster arm, and as you can see, when those are overlapping each other, you've got a very granular 5 possible positions. I'm going to go with the recommended setting and start with the ball stud on the center position, so this one gets set aside, as does the little plastic piece that goes with that. Just want to make sure I'm putting this on the right side. Okay, so just to make sure this is oriented properly. That is right. This one is left. So these go in from behind like that. The little matching plastic piece goes in from the front. Those just snap in like so. I'm going to go ahead and unscrew that and just put a little drop of blue Loctite, because this is one of the few places where we have metal on metal. And then that won't work loose. That really is a great system. There are 2 spacers, and these can be used to adjust the wheelbase. You've got 3 possible positions. You can have 2 spacers to the rear, which moves the axle combination of 2 millimeters forward. You can have it in the middle, 1 spacer on either side, and you can have the wheelbase 2 millimeters to the rear. And then one of those little screws to keep the pin from coming out. Now it's time to assemble axles. As I assemble this kit, I continue to find more and more things that Associated has simplified, just generally made a little easier. For example, when you're assembling your axles, the CV joints, instead of having a grub screw that threads down into the barrel, or instead of having some type of retainer ring that snaps around the outside of this axle housing to some means to keep the little pin retained in there. That is done by the fact that it is machined to slide into the bearing, so the pin is held in place by the inner reese of the bearing. No grub screw, no little metal thing snapping around it, and the axle is completely embedded in here, the axle stub, the outer axle. That puts the CV joint as far out into the hub as possible. It's a very nice design. It makes assembling these very quick and easy. I went ahead and built up and installed the turnbuckles, primarily because there is nothing more tedious besides building these than watching someone else build these. I've got a video coming out that talks about best practices when you're assembling these. There's not much to it. There are no real surprises with this kit. All 6 turnbuckles are identical. The metal parts are identical in size. The steering turnbuckles, there are 2 little dog-legged cups for the outers. Make sure that when you're putting these together that you start with the little notch pointing to the left and assemble all of them that way.